What's up? This is Drex One, and this is another episode of the History of the Bay podcast, sponsored by the good folks at Amoeba Music, San Francisco. Behind the cameras today, we got Rocky and King Said. We got Dio on the boards, and shout out to the producers, Skino and Whitney Chanel. And today, I'm honored to welcome another guest, someone I've been looking forward to talking to for a long time. Someone who has a really interesting story, and we're here today with Miss Jocelyn Superstar.
Awesome.
Superstar.
Awesome. I'm really happy to be here.
Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate you taking the time out. We've been talking a little bit online and text, and it's cool to get here face to face.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Definitely.
So I just want to jump right into your story, starting with where'd you grow up?
I grew up in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, in very white suburbs that I hated. And I used to, in high school, I spent a lot of time in the city of Pittsburgh. I would ride the buses around, and on certain bus lines, there was a lot of graffiti. And this is interesting how I'm just jumping into this.
Yeah, it's all good.
There was this one bus line, the East Busway, on the east side of Pittsburgh, and it went parallel with a train track, Amtrak, and the freight trains went along there, and all along it was full of graffiti. And so this was in the late 70s into the 80s. It really blew up in the 80s. And I used to think to myself all the time, how did people do this? And I was really mesmerized looking at it all the time. I was an artist myself growing up, and I did a lot of illegal vandalism, marking of things, writing on things growing up since I was a little kid, drawing on stuff, crayons on walls, and go to pencils on walls, to Sharpies on walls, to, whatever, desks. And so I was so kind of mesmerized by this graffiti, but I had no idea how people did it. And I certainly did not think any girls could do it. I don't know why I thought this, maybe because I grew up in this really sheltered suburbs and I didn't know anyone who wrote. That was pivotal in my childhood in Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
Was seeing this.
That's cool. So you're seeing the very early stages before people even really realized what it was, huh?
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. I didn't even realize what it was.
Yeah. But you're always into art?
Yeah, always.
Where did that come from?
My parents really pushed me a lot. Both my parents were super creative. My dad was good at building things with wood and later built his own house. But my mom was an artist when she was growing up. And I kind of just got pushed into it. I played classical piano too. But art was really turned into the passion. I got burnt out on piano pretty fast.
Yeah.
So I was very mixed media oriented, painting, sculpture. I did a lot of sewing growing up, very, very crafty. And I went to Carnegie Mellon in Pittsburgh, PA, for my undergrad degree, BFA in art, and that was in painting and sculpture.
So you just knew from the beginning that this is what you want to do?
Pretty much. It became very clear when I was in high school.
Yeah.
So I was right on track. And I actually wanted to go straight through to graduate school after undergrad, but I did not get in right away. So I became a bike messenger in Chicago for 3 years. So that was kind of a real life learning experience for me that was very different from what I grew up with.
Why Chicago?
I actually wanted to go to graduate school there.
Oh,
there was a lot of good schools in Chicago, and there was a good art scene.
Yeah.
It was kind of close to Pittsburgh, so I could take the train back and forth. And I had friends that had moved there after graduating from undergrad. And so that's where I ended up for 3 years. But then I hated it after a while. It was really depressing. It was really big. There was a lot of poverty, and especially where I lived. And And I ended up going back to Pittsburgh for 5 months. Then I finally got into graduate school at San Francisco Art Institute. And in 96, I came out to San Francisco in August of 96.
So you had already been like experimenting with writing on walls, or did you like get full on into the graffiti culture by then?
No, full on into the graffiti, I call it graffiti art culture versus vandalism. I was really part of vandalism. I got caught many times growing up for vandalizing with spray paint or markers or whatever. And for some reason, I was always getting caught. And but I never really thought I could be a part of the art side of it. I still didn't know how people did these floaters and stuff I was seeing. I definitely had no can control. I didn't know anything other than a stock tip. And then I came to San Francisco to go to San Francisco Art Institute, and there was this required Barry McGee twist lecture that everybody had to go to. And that was, let me see, I believe it was November 5th, 1996.
You were required to go to a twist lecture?
Yes.
That's crazy.
Yes.
What was he, just like their star pupil student that they wanted to show off?
He was the star artist, I believe. Maybe this was around the time he got the stuff over at Yerba Buena Center for the Arts and around the MoMA. There was all this wood fencing type stuff around. And so he was kind of the star in the art scene, graffiti artist, but also came from the Art Institute. So they were like, let's bring in Twist. He'll be really interesting for the kids. And, but I think, the painting department was very, very conservative, like oil on canvas. And I did not fit into that department at all. So I think it went over a lot of the painters' heads. They were like, what's all this about? But it spoke to me, and Twist spoke to me. And like, I walked out of that lecture like a different person. Like, I found out all this stuff. He was telling people how to make mops and like how to do floaters and like how these things happen. And he was like, yeah, you can go to the hardware store and get this diamond tip scribing tool, and you can scribe up the bus shelters. And, he was just really giving all these suggestions for what to do with graffiti. And for me, like the person dabbling in graffiti my whole life, he spoke to me.
That's crazy.
So, yeah, it was crazy. It was crazy. I think things happen for a reason. And that was one thing that was on my path that definitely was meant to happen.
Yeah, like throughout some of the stuff I do, and we're kind of talking about this off camera, like how graffiti is like a hidden, secretive subculture. Like sometimes I'll hear negative opinions like, you shouldn't be telling people about this stuff.
Right.
But then you're telling me you literally got your introduction by Twist, literally giving away graffiti secrets at an art school.
Exactly.
And to me, that just says, man, just give up the game. Like, pass it on. Yeah. Like, tell people about it. Otherwise...
He was even showing slides of like Amaze, and he's like, this is Amaze. Like Amaze painting. And like, I don't think Amaze was down. Yeah, I don't think Amaze was down with that. But he was doing that, and he was really having a good time telling everybody everything.
Yeah. Damn, that's crazy. And I guess he didn't have any fear of his identity being out there.
Yeah, I've always wondered, why they didn't go after him, because he certainly did do damage.
Yeah.
But yeah, no fear, I guess.
I mean, maybe that's something we can talk about down the line too. But like, it does seem like, from what I see of like the early days when Twist was really out there in his prime, there was. It wasn't the same type of consequences for graffiti writers that there is today. Yeah. Where you got...
It was more semi-legal.
Semi-legal, like, there's a fucked up building and some kids painting on it, whatever.
Yeah.
Or like all the
or they take away your paint and let you go. That happened a lot.
Yeah. Yeah.
So very different scene now.
Yeah, now they're throwing felonies at kids.
Yeah, yeah. And there's been waves of this, you know, because we saw during Corona that once again, graffiti almost got sort of semi-legal during Corona.
Yeah,
it blew up.
Yeah, I noticed that.
So, you know, there's these waves, you know, now we have a new DA.
Yeah.
And the new DA, I think, is cracking down. I've already heard of a lot of people getting arrested for graffiti in my peer group. And, you know, everybody should be careful again.
Yeah. I mean, anytime they want to, like, make some headlines and make it look like they're cleaning up the city or there's some new event or some Super Bowl or some buildings getting put up, then they want to start cracking down on it again.
Exactly.
To go back to, like, the whole art school thing, I've heard a lot of different people's takes on art school. I know a lot of writers that have gone to art school, and some writers that aren't, like, are anti-art school for whatever reason.
Yeah.
And some people, period, students who are, like, kind of disillusioned after going to art school. But what was your opinion on it? What was your experience?
I loved it, especially undergraduate for me. I went to a university, so I studied English and gender studies and history of Africa. All these really dope subjects on the side. I got like a double major in art history. So it was very spread out and just let me do whatever I wanted to do. Then I went to graduate school. It's very different because it was at an art school. So the focus is really on art. Although I remember taking a class in the Gothic and reading Dracula. So you do read stuff that's not just art history or technique stuff or criticism. But the difference between graduate school and graduate school really turned me into a critic. And it was pretty painful at times. I almost failed out at one point.
Like a self-critic?
Self-critic, and just to look at other people's art and criticize. Yeah. Also, because all you do is sit around and critiques all day, and you look at art and you just slam it. Like it teaches you to look at the piece and find out what's wrong with it. And that kind of drives me crazy in my own work. Like I'm very OCD. And I'm always looking for the problem. So that's a little bit annoying. But overall, you know, I think art school for me was really good. It made me really tough, super educated. I love art history. So it gave me time to really delve into art history and specialize in what I wanted to do. When I was in graduate school, I did a lot of 35 millimeter slide lectures about graffiti, and that was sort of how I threw graffiti into my school mix. I spent a lot of time in new genres, not in painting and sculpture, and in new genres, I was kind of fit in a lot better. And you know, I would say graffiti is more part of new genres. I've heard graffiti likened to performance art. And that you're very aware of your body and all your movements and everything. More so than like traditional painting. You know?
Can control wrist action and all that type of stuff.
Exactly. And then if you're actually doing illegal graffiti, then there's the whole side of what you have to go through to do it, and should you get caught, you need to get away. So
there's so many little things that you have to prepare for when you're going out at night and bombing. From how you organize your paint and all types, your getaway routes, all different types of stuff.
Right.
So after you saw that twist lecture, were you pretty much off to the races? Like, all right, now I get it. It's clicking for me. I'm finna start doing this.
I first started with stickers, and then I kind of built up really fast to tagging with markers. I worked at Pearl Art and Crafts, so I kind of had access to all these art supplies.
Nice.
And
that on market?
Yep. Yeah. So I was getting things for free.
Nice.
It was really nice. And my manager actually gave me a lot of things for free, too.
Yeah.
She was into the free thing.
Yeah. To the extent, I feel like that store was kind of supportive of writers.
Yeah, they were.
Yeah.
They were.
Yeah. So, what was the landscape of San Francisco graffiti like at this time? And were there other writers that were influencing you that you saw?
Yes, it was super duper exciting. When I moved here, Reminisce had just left San Francisco Art Institute. She just graduated and she moved on to LA, but all of her graffiti was still around. And I was so inspired by her. What is this horse? And how many horses could I see in a day? And her letters were great too. I had found out really more about her from the Twist lecture.
Yeah.
So she really stood out, and Twist showed a lot of pictures of her stuff, a lot of 35 millimeter slides. And let's see, also KR was here, Amaze. Oh my gosh, the culture was just so rich at that time. Ty was a crazy maniac and did more graffiti than anyone during the time he was alive. And there was just the landscape was so rich with graffiti. Another person, Juice, was super cool with these bicycles everywhere and Bigfoot, the monsters everywhere. It just was such a different landscape than what we see now.
Yeah.
Really pop and very, very enticing, like a candy shop.
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. And so as you're going out and just like you're bombing now, you're figuring it out as you go, did you start making friends and meeting other writers?
I probably made a lot of enemies because I did a lot of side busting. I didn't know the rules. That was something Twist didn't really talk about the rules so much as how to do it. So I just kind of did my own thing, did a lot of side busting. I was sticking stickers over people's tags. I just didn't know the rules. And one thing I did was I kind of identified very fast with who was on top of the graffiti scene. And I started conversations with people like KR and Amaze. And I was sort of sticker battling with Amaze, and he left these stickers with a pager phone number on it back when everyone had pagers, and we didn't have cell phones then. And so I saw these stickers around with this pager number, and it was like, for a good time, call Josh, Amaze, and like side busting all my stuff in different spots. And I was really excited. I rode a bike everywhere. I was a bike messenger, so a bicycle was kind of like shoes to me. And I was just riding from spot to spot, seeing all these Amaze stickers. So I rode home, called the pager number, and he called me back. And we met up 20 minutes later. And, he was in the city close by. And we became friends. And he told me a lot of the rules. And also told me how to fight wars, told me who to give attention to, told me what bands were cool, got me into Sleater Kinney. Just was a really big influence on me. So that was the first person I met in graffiti, other than seeing the Twist lecture, that told me stuff and started teaching me about the history of graffiti. Also, Amaze was good friends with Gray. Gray came up from Albuquerque, and Gray was staying with him. And Gray was really, really big into history of graffiti and was showing me all these books that were great. Getting Up is probably my favorite book. And I'm trying to think. I'm drawing a blank. My other favorite one is the Norman Mailer.
The Norman Mailer did a graffiti book?
Yes.
What?
Oh my God. New York City graffiti in the 70s.
Really?
Yeah. Why can't I remember it? It's driving me crazy. I'll remember it later.
Yeah.
Let's move on.
So that's pretty cool. I mean, I don't think people these days will understand that's a crazy way to meet somebody.
Yeah,
Get
it
their
is.
pager number off of a sticker.
It is.
After you've been battling each other with stickers.
Yeah. Yeah,
What is
exactly. Thank you so much. The Faith of Graffiti is the book I'm thinking of. That and Getting Up are really my favorite little graffiti Bibles.
I gotta grab that. My pops was a big Norman.
Yeah,
Mailer
I have
fan.
a copy of it. I should have brought it.
It's all good.
I should have brought all my books.
So now you're pretty much, I'm sure, because I know how it goes. You meet somebody else, then you meet somebody else, and then through them you meet other people.
Yeah.
And just the next, and it, especially back in those days, it was a pretty tight knit scene. Wasn't like there was like thousands and thousands of people doing it.
Yeah, exactly. It was a lot tighter.
And your style is very unique.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it quite looks like anybody else's. To me, it's very feminine.
Yeah, thank you.
It's pretty obvious you're a woman. I mean, not only that, you're writing Jocelyn Superstar.
Yeah,
so.
right.
Where did you develop your style?
My style I've had my whole life. That, because I was an artist. When I was like in 3rd and 4th grade, I was obsessed with calligraphy. So the more ornate the lettering was, the better. I loved bubble letters. Everything about fonts was interesting to me growing up. My dad had a perfect print style that was very rounded, and he had a backhand to it too. It was perfected amazingly, and so I was very, very influenced by my dad's writing. So I would try to write like my dad growing up. So but his like he makes his E's like 3s, like that. So for me, I would take that and maybe like that, and so just take it further and make it very ornate and girly and kind of in your face punk rock too.
I get that sense too.
Yeah.
I think there's like definitely like a hip hop style, like the ICP kind of funk letters.
Yeah, exactly.
And then there's a punk rock style, and everything in
kind
between.
of art punk rock style. Yeah,
I like all of it.
That's me. Yeah, I like all of it too.
Yeah.
Although bombing is my favorite. I'm not really into legal pieces so much, even though I do them sometimes too. Challenge myself. I like to be able to do everything. I think being able to do everything is very admirable when I look at other writers.
I agree. That's kind of the top standard.
Exactly. But I love bombing. That's really my passion.
Well, speaking of bombing, do you have any crazy chase stories?
I do have, I have different stories coming to my head. I don't want to knock these off again. and I have different stories coming to my head, but the best chase story was when I was painting with Ty and we were painting along the freeway, and he took me to all his chill spots. He was teaching me to bomb. So I met him after I met Amaze and Gray. He was kind of the 3rd writer that I met. And I was painting a legal spot with a paintbrush, but it said Jocelyn Superstar. And it was a piece I never finished because 5 there was Vandal Squad back then, rolled up and was hassling me, and some was painting that wall at the same time, and they put some in handcuffs. It was very dramatic. We had to talk our way out of it. So I never finished that piece, but when I was there, Ty showed up while I was painting, and that was how I met Ty. So anyways, Ty was the third person. The story I have is Ty taking me to these chill spots and painting along the freeway. And one time there was all this rustling in the kind of trees and brush along the freeway. We're against the wall, painting the wall. And Ty starts screaming, "Vandal Squad, Vandal Squad." And I was like, "No, I don't think it's Vandal Squad." And because there was a lot of homeless people around there in little camps. And he's like, "No, it's Vandal Squad. Get up the tree." And he made me climb up a tree and hide from Vandal Squad when it wasn't even Vandal Squad. It was homeless people. And they literally walked underneath us, and I'm hiding up in a tree. They never knew we were there. And then they left, and he's like, "Okay, get back down and we can finish our pieces." So that was the craziest. That was absolutely, and that's such a Ty story. He just took everything to the highest level. Literally up a tree.
I've heard some chase stories where it's like, dude, you might as well just let yourself get caught.
Yeah.
Like, I've heard of people jumping into water off the pier.
Yeah.
And,
yeah.
Jumping off of falling off of crazy long drops and stuff.
Yeah.
That's pretty funny.
Yeah, the tree was pretty funny because I hadn't climbed a tree since I was a kid. Yeah. And I thought he was crazy. And you couldn't really argue with him, though. He was the mastermind. Yeah. And he would tell you how to do things, and he was definitely telling me how to do things. I didn't really argue with him. I knew he was the mastermind.
Yeah, no, it's important when you have a mentor like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you get hated on a lot for being a woman writer?
I did, by a ton of people. But, at the same time, I think I stood out to people like Amaze and Gray, and Orphan. Orphan was friends with Amaze and Gray, and they told me Orphan was maybe the fourth person I met or something. And they were like, "Orphan really wants to meet you." And I was like, "Really?" And they were like, and I was like, but I guess I didn't really know who he was. And they were like, "Back in blah, blah, blah year, Orphan was voted most popular graffiti in San Francisco in the SF Weekly or The Guardian." Yeah. One of them. And I don't know what year it was, 94, 95 or something like that.
Best of the Bay.
Yeah, Best of the Bay. So he was the most popular graffiti artist at that time and went on for like another 20 years being the most popular graffiti artist. Yeah, for sure. I mean, he was, you think I'm original. He was the master of original. I see some
similarities, and I could see why he would want to meet you, though.
Yeah. We were both into the punk rock bike thing and do your own thing, art thing, and your own vision.
So basically, overall, even though there were haters, the people you were meeting were kind of outweighing.
Yeah, exactly. For sure. The haters were toys, in my opinion. Yeah.
Most it goes hand in hand, people. Most haters are toys.
It's toy behavior to hate.
Yeah, exactly.
So if you're gonna spend that energy, that's very toy.
Yeah, if you got confidence in what you're doing, you're not really gonna care that much to hate on somebody else.
Yeah, exactly.
Why do you think it is? And there's a lot more now, but why do you think there were less women graffiti writers?
I think the time period, it's kind of a slightly more balanced society now with women and men. There was more sexism back then, and it's just become a little bit more accepted for women to be tough. And there's all these waves of feminism. I've studied feminism a lot, and I am a feminist. But there's all these waves of feminism, and now we're kind of like in this other, just like cleaning up graffiti, there's waves of feminism, you know.
Sure.
We're in this other wave where it's become very acceptable for females to act a certain way, to be a little bit more outgoing than maybe 25 years ago.
Yeah. Do you also think it's something more like it's easier for like younger girls to be able to see themselves in these roles too?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But also, graffiti is not marginalized anymore. Like when I was growing up wondering how people were doing things, it's part of hip hop culture.
Yeah.
So it's received a lot of attention visually by academics.
Yeah. Pop culture too.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Pop culture and academia. Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, to see the changes now. I think it's dope that there's so many women out there writing now, and young girls.
Yeah, I'm inspired. There's a lot. I think there's a lot of teenage girls right now.
A lot of teenage girls, yeah.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of teenagers in general.
There are. I'm meeting some of them. I'm meeting some of these 12-year-old kids. It's blowing my mind. Like, whoa.
Yeah.
There's, like you said, it comes in waves. I think there's a new wave right now.
Yeah, I think so too, because of that whole Corona thing.
Yeah.
Where graffiti was so. Everybody was doing it.
Yeah.
You know, people were mad, and let's go out and do graffiti because we're mad.
The streets are empty.
Yeah, the streets are empty, and that's what people were doing.
Yeah. Well, to go back to Ty, because I know he's an important part of your story. So you said you met him through just by pulling up to that spot.
Yeah. He pulled up to me while I was painting, and he had his hands on his hips. He called me Jocelyn. He couldn't say Jocelyn. English was not his first language. He spoke Chinese. And Jocelyn, you dissed my crew. And I was like, no, I didn't diss your crew. I'm just giving you attention. You know, I'm your fan. And he was so defensive. But then we just started talking, and we really got along. And he was like, do you smoke weed? And I was like, yeah. And he's like, hold on a second. And he gets on his bike, and he rides home. And he brings back 7 perfectly rolled joints. And he kind of throws them at me. And I was like, really? And he's like, yeah, you can have these. And he was like, I only smoke blunts. But then as I became friends with him, I realized that was not true. Ty would smoke any type of weed. That there were times we were scraping the bong, and we were smoking some gnarly shit.
How old was he at that time?
He was 18.
Okay.
I met him only a few months before he passed away.
But you guys got really close, huh?
Yeah, we got very, very close. Yeah, he was my mentor. He was my teacher of bombing. When I met him at that wall, you know, after he had his hands on his hips, ready to kick my ass, he was like, why don't you let me teach you bombing? You want to learn bombing, and you want to learn how to bomb? And I was like, sure.
Yeah.
So I was really down for it. And I kind of stopped going to school for a while. I was just hanging out with Ty every day.
So you're much older than him too. You're already.
Yeah, I was 8 years older.
Yeah.
So.
And you're like, damn, this kid's
cool. Or 7.5 years older. Yeah. He was super cool. I'd never met anyone like him in my life.
What was his personality like?
Very, very hyper manic. He never slept. He was a big stoner, had no interest in TV or pop culture. People always say Ty listened to rap. I never saw him listening to any music or heard him listen to any music during our whole friendship. The only thing he was focused on was graffiti. So maybe he was with these other dudes, and other dudes had some rap on, and he responded to it. But I saw him only responding to graffiti, and that was it. That was what his whole life was about.
Where do you think that came from? Because that's a rare kind of dedication to anything. But in graffiti, people do other stuff.
Supposedly, he told me he had cousins in San Jose that did graffiti, and they were a big influence on him. They were older.
Yeah, I'm trying to, I know you're working on a book too, and we'll talk about that later. But just since I've been doing my videos, I've been hearing all these stories that I never heard before.
Yeah.
Kind of piecing it together just for my own sake, and just so I can correctly tell people to.
Yeah.
But, I'm hearing a lot of people tell stories about growing up with him in Santa Clara.
Yeah.
And that he was bombing out there in San Jose as well. I believe even Stockton he might have
Yeah,
lived for a while.
I think he was bombing anywhere he could get to.
Yeah.
And that he just had the attitude, more is better, and did as much as he could wherever he could, and that was really the only thing he was thinking about besides his family. And he was a devout Buddhist. He did spend time thinking about Buddhism, um, and family, very, very involved in his family. But aside from that, it was all about graffiti.
Did you ever get to meet anyone in his family? Were you close with them?
I did not, but I have, since he passed away, I have talked with his sister on Instagram.
Oh,
yeah,
cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, and they are supportive of a book coming out about
great.
About his life, yeah.
Well, I mean, unfortunately, it's hard to tell his story without talking about his passing.
Yeah, it is.
And I've researched this. Like I said, I've looked into it. But just, do you want to tell your version of events there?
I think maybe it's better if you tell it, because it's hard for me. I get a little tripped up.
Yeah,
I get a little tripped up.
I know it's a sensitive subject.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's been documented in magazines and piece by piece documentary. Pretty detailed job.
I talked about it in Piece by Piece.
Yeah.
And so it's like, if I talk about it again, I'm just kind of reliving what I did in Piece by Piece.
Yeah. I mean, just basically the idea that he was out bombing by himself and climbing up a pole to a building in the Tenderloin to access the roof.
Yeah.
Vietnam veteran who, with the reports I read, said that he was already pulling guns out on people.
Yeah, that he had a big collection of guns, was a gun freak.
Yeah.
And also had a human target
yeah.
range on the backside of his door. Yeah, I read that in reports.
So it just kind of obviously comes off as a really unstable guy.
Exactly.
He came out, confronted Ty. There was a witness. I don't think she ended up coming forward in
I heard she was not a credible witness because she was a sex worker.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but basically her version of events was hearing basically Ty try to deal with it peacefully. Throw his hands up, say don't shoot.
Right.
He was unarmed.
Exactly.
18 years old, teenager, small guy.
Exactly.
And the coroner report and everything shows that he was shot in the back of the head. Yeah. So and going down the stairs. Yeah. Running away. So there's really no threat to William Porter for shooting him. Yeah.
Yeah. It's hard for me to talk about, because as you're talking about the stairs, I can see the stairs because I was there after he was murdered. We all had a memorial at that spot until the cops ran us out. And I was right there crying at the stairs. So I can see the stairs in my head. Yeah. There was blood all over the stairs and the cement in the parking lot. It was fresh blood.
Yeah, I'm sorry that you and all his friends and all his family had to experience that. And but I do think didn't Porter come out and harass people during that memorial?
Yeah, I never had a encounter with him, but I did hear that story a lot. But I heard a lot of graffiti writers harassing him over the years too.
Oh, going back, Yeah, well, he's on Facebook. Yeah, I've seen him on Facebook. Yeah. And the reason why I think it's important to tell the story too is just the fact that no charges were ever filed. Yeah. Really fucked up. Yeah. In your opinion, why do you think that is?
Because Ty was Asian. He was a minor. His parents were Chinese. but they came from the Philippines. So they, English wasn't their first language. They weren't able to fight a proper legal battle, I think. They were also Buddhists, so maybe they thought, let it go.
Just let it go. Yeah.
You know, and Porter was a photojournalist, was kind of well esteemed in the art world a little bit, and had a lot of pictures in like City Hall or something like that. I remember as a bike messenger, I saw some of his pictures in buildings that they, people would point him out to me. Oh, that's the guy that murdered Ty. And yeah, crazy how it was dropped.
Well, I think I read too that it wasn't there. I think he had to testify in front of a grand jury, maybe, and from there they just decided, all right, case dismissed, no charges,
right,
and
right.
I think on top of the fact that Ty was allegedly about to commit some vandalism too. And I just gotta say this. I've gotten so many, this really pisses me off. I gotten so many messages, so many comments on my video about Ty, about people saying, well, he shouldn't have been doing that. And it's just like, dude, there's no possible excuse. There's no reason why you think putting paint on a wall
that comment makes me sick.
Is worth somebody's life. And it's an 18-year-old kid. He's just still developing. There's a million other ways that situation could have been handled without him losing his life. So I just think, I'm glad. I'm sorry that it's such a tragedy, and I don't want to obviously relive those events, but I do think it's important that people know the story and continue to tell it. And that video about Ty has been the biggest one I've ever done.
Yeah.
It's been viewed millions of times. So for whatever reason, that story is really resonating with people. And I'm glad, as you said before, he was in the pursuit of this fame for his graffiti. And I do think that if there is any silver lining to this horrible thing, is that so many people have kept his name alive.
Yeah.
And yourself being one of them. What do you think about all the tributes and stuff that went up for him?
I think it's great.
Yeah.
And, all of us that knew him, really, we know that he wanted to be famous in graffiti, and that was his number one thing that he was trying to accomplish for eternity. He would be famous in graffiti, and he didn't want to be forgotten. And so we all know that, and he made that very clear. And I think all the tribute, the Ty warning stuff.
Yeah.
I almost wore my shirt today, but I decided to wear a dress. But whoever it is that puts up those Ty warning stickers, they're doing a really good job.
Yeah.
There's show stickers. That's how you pronounce SEO, is show. And there's a lot of show stickers running around. T-shirts, skateboards now. Fate was making skateboards at the Thai ship. It's all good because it keeps it alive.
Yeah. Shout out to Fate, too.
Yeah, shout out to Fate, for sure.
It up a little bit here and there. One thing that you've done, and you still continue to do, I see on your Instagram, is documenting.
Yeah.
I think flicking is a big part of graffiti culture, especially pre-internet days.
Yeah, especially for me, too, with my art background.
Right.
It's very mixed media. I studied black and white photography when I was an undergrad. And as an artist, we're always documenting our work. It's very, very important. So when I was in graduate school and I started doing graffiti, I had to document my work, 35 millimeter slides. And then when I was a bike messenger in San Francisco after graduate school, I would carry around a disposable 35 millimeter camera. And so it's very important to document work, because now you see it, now you don't.
Yeah, there's times you might paint a masterpiece and it might be gone the next day.
Yeah, exactly.
So was that part of your practice, like just carrying a camera with you? Wherever?
Exactly. Yeah. Now I'm carrying around a phone.
Hey, whatever, same principle. different medium,
It's not
I
as
guess.
cool.
Yeah. You did your own developing and stuff too?
I did when I was an undergrad,
Yeah.
but I had the opportunity to when I was in graduate school, but I was just so damn busy. Developing film, it takes time.
Yeah.
So I felt like I didn't really have time to be in the darkroom.
That's like a whole another art.
Yeah,
discipline.
it's a whole other art. Yeah, and you can get really anal with it, and I'm not that anal with my photography.
I know what you mean.
I like a little bit of spots and things.
Yeah.
Blur.
Yeah. But your collection of pictures eventually led to this book right here. The original Bay Area Graffiti book.
Yeah.
How did that come together?
Let's see. I was really big into Flickr, and one of my fans on Flickr was S. Faustina, and he asked me to write a book with him. He messaged me on Flickr and said, "Will you write a book with me?" And I thought he was joking, actually, and I didn't take him seriously. And as we were working on it, it was about 2 months into it that I realized, okay, this is for real. We're really working on a book. And right about that time, he is a senior graphic designer for Francis Ford Coppola and has a lot of connections with publishers. And right about that time, he was talking to Mark Batty. And Mark Batty said, "Oh, we're interested in that." And so literally we were 2 months into the book, and then they threw us a year deadline and said, "Oh, can you write this book in a year?" And I was like, "Oh, I don't know." And he's like, "Yes, you can." And as Faustina, and he was really, the person that kept me in line through the whole book, getting it done. And he's a great partner, great artist, and great graffiti artist, but I can't say what he writes. But he's in the book.
It's an amazing book. Like we were saying off camera, I've seen it around for a long time.
Thank you.
This is like my first time actually picking it up and going through it, and it's got really cool interviews, and it's out of print now.
Yeah.
So you're saying that it's it's selling for like...
Yeah, I've seen copies go for $357. That's the highest I've seen on eBay.
That's big.
And even the lowest I saw was like 3 years ago. I saw it go for $90, and that's what I bought that for because I didn't have any more copies.
If you're out there and you're selling one of these, hit me up. I'll spend the $90. Yeah. I'll do that. And it's cool to, just because in our conversation, you were saying that like the early books, the Norman Mailer, how that kind of inspired you, and then you created your own.
Yeah,
so that's
exactly.
Really cool.
Yeah, and I made a lot of zines over the years too. That totally led up. I didn't just write a book. I made zines. And whenever people say they want to write a book, I kind of laugh at them. And I'm like, you better make some zines first and figure out how to do it.
That's another thing I was going to ask about. Can you explain, like, because I met this kid the other day, didn't even know what a zine was, which I don't blame him for. But I do remember, especially for the graffiti, like a zine, it was important. Like pre-internet, like, if you ain't got the flicks, you ain't got them.
Yeah, exactly. That's what we had before the internet.
Yeah.
Was we had a lot of pen pals, and we passed around photographs to each other, 35 millimeter photographs. So, yeah.
What was your process like for making zines?
I did everything cut and paste with an X-Acto knife and a ruler. And I did not use a computer at all. I would copy my pictures on a Xerox machine. And I actually went to Copy Central because there was a Copy Central right by my graduate studio in graduate school. So that's where I went usually. But I have been to Kinko's too.
Yeah. I mean, I just love that feeling of like, that folded paper in your hands with the staple, the look of it. I might try to bring those back.
Yeah, I've had, in the 90s, I had a couple photocopy machines myself too. And there was a scam I used to do at Office Depot, and this is a good story. You could go in there and within 30 days return a piece of electronic equipment. So you could buy a photocopier on a credit card and return it within 30 days, but use up that toner that it comes with for 30 days and return it. And mine would have all this dog hair in it and stuff, and they'd be looking at it, but they had to take it back. And then I would literally do it again, and I did it 3 times in a row where I kept getting these photocopiers that way and returning them.
That's pretty nice, pretty slick.
Yeah. Whatever way you can get the work done.
I mean, that's definitely the graffiti mentality by any means necessary.
Right.
One other thing I want to ask you about, just in terms of because you've been part of so many things, documenting the culture. Some people might know you from being in Piece by Piece.
Yeah.
What was that like, and what's your opinion? What's your opinion of the final product?
Well, I was, it's interesting. I was one of the first people that was interviewed in Piece by Piece. A lot of writers were very skeptical and more secretive than me.
Yeah.
Because I was in graduate school and I was always presenting these slide presentations to everybody. I was very public, and I actually studied performance art. I didn't talk about this yet in undergraduate. So the performance art really fit in well with doing 35 millimeter lectures about graffiti. And I kind of lost my train of thought.
Piece by Piece.
Oh, Piece by Piece. Yeah, exactly. I was one of the first people interviewed, and I was not scared to be interviewed at all because of my background. And I welcomed these guys into my home that I didn't know, and just really went on a limb for it. And it turned out great.
Yeah.
I'm so proud of the kids and they were kids that made this. They were in their early 20s. Beautiful film, just covers the history really, really well. And it's a gorgeous film. Done very well.
Yeah, it's pretty important.
Yeah.
I was at the premiere.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. I was 16 with a 40 in the back of the movie theater. It was a pretty wild night.
Yeah.
That was fun. But a lot of people have hit me up and referenced Piece by Piece, so I think it did a really good job of just documenting the culture. I heard people say some complaints, there should have been more of the 80s.
Or more SF, why are you covering MSK, all that stuff. But that's part of the history.
Yeah.
They came up here and they kicked butt.
Yeah, they definitely did. And that was a cool way to I think they did a pretty good job overall. It
was great. Yeah. It was great. I'm so happy to be a part of that.
We've talked about a little bit just with Corona and stuff, but what do you think is what changes have you seen? How is today's graffiti scene in San Francisco different than when you jumped in it?
There just don't seem to be as many cutty spots as there used to be for bombing. I go out there and it's mostly about tagging.
Yeah.
Because a lot of the cutty spots are gone. It's just a different landscape.
Yeah.
But you do what you can do. There's many, many different ways to do graffiti, like stickers or whatever. Floor tags. You do what you can do.
Yeah.
So,
I don't see it going anywhere.
Very, very, yeah.
It's still around for now.
Exactly.
And do you want to say a little bit more about what other stuff you're working on, like the book or anything else coming up in the future?
Well, I am working on another book with S. Faustina. It's called King Ty. It's coming along very slowly because I have fibromyalgia, and we were going to talk about that, and then we kind of forgot about that. But that just slows me down in life, and I walk with a cane.
What is that?
Fibromyalgia, it's nerve pain all over your body, but there's a lot of symptoms that come with it. There's rashes and dry skin and memory loss and just migraines and everything. But I a couple times this year I lost feeling in my hand and my arm up to my shoulder for about 4 months, and it was just severe pain, or I couldn't feel anything. And I was still able to do art and move my hand through all this, but I couldn't feel it or it felt horrible. So that's fibromyalgia. I had back surgery. I never came back from my back surgery. I had back surgery in 2021. Yeah. 1 year ago, one and a half years ago. I never came back from it because I have this autoimmune thing, fibromyalgia. And you just can't come back from things as well. Your body doesn't fight things in the right way. So I suffer from a lot of pain.
Yeah, and I appreciate you even taking the time to be here, knowing that that's what you're dealing with.
Yeah.
And does the art and stuff like
the art really, really helps.
Yeah.
Graffiti gets me excited. Art really gets me excited. I spend all my time doing art now when I'm outside of bed, and bed is very painful for me. I actually don't sleep very often. I have a lot of insomnia. So I just spend all my time doing art and hanging out with friends and graffiti activities.
Yeah, I know. Well, you're still pushing.
Yeah.
And I can't wait to see what you do with the book.
Yeah. I also, so that book is a slow thing. Also, I am working on a fashion line called Jocelyn Superstar Fashion. And it's a lot of cut up t-shirts with HTV vinyl on it, heat transfer vinyl, rhinestones, and cool accessories like my earrings. So I'm really interested in fashion too, and bringing graffiti into that and hip hop into that, and
that's awesome.
Glam, and yeah.
I love seeing all the different ways that like graffiti can take you.
Yeah.
Like for me, and like I bring it into my music. It just something I was part of that. It influences like everything I do in life.
Exactly. It's all part of the culture.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Jocelyn Superstar. You have an amazing story. You're a really cool person.
Thank you.
You've done some really cool stuff, and I'm glad that you were down to come here and share the story today.
Thank you.
For sure.
Thanks for having me here.
Of course.
Really enjoyed it.
Thank you to the whole team. Another historic episode. They're going to be watching these in 20 years from now.
Yay!
Mark my words. It's the History of the Bay podcast. Thanks to the whole team, and we'll be back next week. Much love.
Bye-bye.